This week's Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff's Atlanta Media. Subscribe today to the best database of Atlanta journalists, leffsatlantamedia.com. Welcome to this week's edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We are talking this week with Kiplyn Primus with WCLK Radio. Good afternoon, Kiplyn.
Good afternoon, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to connect. We were just saying off camera, as they say, that you and I have been kind of working together on email and phone for a couple of years. So it's nice to kind of get a chance for us to see each other and get to know each other a little bit better.
I'm appreciating it. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's jump right in. Tell me a little bit about your journalism background, and then we'll get into kind of what you do specifically at WCLK.
Well, my journalism background came in a funny kind of way because, as a child in the 70s, when you were going to college, you were supposed to go to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I got accepted at Howard, believe it or not, in a pre-med program, which lasted about 1 year. And I started taking courses in the School of Communications and ended up having really and truthfully enough classes for that to be my major. But I stayed in the School of Liberal Arts. I majored in English and have a minor in journalism and Spanish. And then, of course, I went to, work and was working in marketing. And I got a job. I remember I got a job at Essence and I was so happy, left DC, moved to New York and was working at Essence Magazine. And everyone kept saying, well, when are you going to have, they kept looking for articles and I'm writing sales letters and, advertising campaigns. And it's like, I just had a great sales letter and it got this kind of much engagement and, the sales team was real happy. But yeah, there were no articles in Essence Magazine. And I kind of stayed in the advertising world for quite a bit of my career. In fact, when I moved back to Atlanta, I worked for Foot Cone & Belding, advertising agency, worked on, Taco Bell accounts and did a lot of, great things there. And then kind of just moved around doing marketing, landed at Initiative Media, which used to be called West Media, one of the largest media buying agencies in the world. And, started doing sales promotion and that kind of thing. And then ended up in sales at the Atlanta Journal and Constitution. So for most of my career, I've been on the business side of media operations. And in 2011, actually it was 2010, at the end of 2010, and if you think about the media landscape at that time, talk radio was huge. Music stations in New York were changing to talk. The conservative talk radio, the airwaves were full of talk radio. And I thought, maybe this would be a place to have a show that wasn't Rush Limbaugh or, any of the other kind of, shock jocks for a better word.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, it was all shocking information and, everyone was supposed to be in an uproar. I thought it might be good to have a counterpoint to that actually explained to people what was going on at the federal level, because a lot of people just don't engage with the news on a regular basis. And so you're ignoring things that are going to impact you. And so I thought that's the name of the show is The Local Take, because what we kind of set out to do was to give the local take on all of those things that are kind of going on above your head that you don't have time to pay attention to. And I kind of wrote it up. I wrote up the idea of what I thought the show could be. And I did some research about radio and where radio was going at that time and what was being, what was popular. And I met with the station manager who I had just finished MBA school with. So I'd gone back and gotten an MBA. And I met with her and, kind of pulled out my research, pulled out my little plan. And she was like, you know what, Kiplyn, I think this is a good idea. And also at that time, stations were expanding their bandwidth. So WCLK had a WCLK1, the main station, and then there was a 2 and a 3 and a student-run channel.
Okay.
And she was talking about putting me on one of those channels. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. That's fine. I'm just starting. And at the same time that I was talking about this show, The Takeaway was launching on Public Radio International. So PRI had just developed the the Takeaway as a vehicle for the journalist John Hockenberry. And they were putting money into it, and they wanted, they were trying to get it on as many stations as possible. And they needed the local news inset. So they needed something on their clock. There was local news breaks. And so when that happened, it was like, Kiplyn, instead of putting you there, we're going to put you on The Takeaway. And The Takeaway I think it was broadcasting like at 6 a.m. So I was having to get to the station at 6 a.m., work the clock. Right. And we would do local news, but also commentary. I think at the first show we talked about a local school board. I think it was either the DeKalb board was looking to get accreditation. Their accreditation was being hung up, and we were talking about schools needing accreditation. That was the first show. And we did that for almost 3 or 4 months. And then when PRI took away the money from the station, of course, WCLK is a smaller station, so we weren't able to afford a lot of the PRI and NPR and, public broadcasting shows. Those shows cost a lot of money. And so when that happened, instead of taking it away or moving it back to that other station, we turned it into a public affairs show on WCLK. And it was 10 years ago in January. So we started broadcasting every, Saturday morning when we first started at 7 a.m. And honest and truthfully, a lot of the people were business owners that were opening up their stores, at 7 a.m. and putting on the WCLK for the day. Sure. And those were kind of the first folks that, I got any traction with. And I think about 3 or 4 years ago, they moved me to 8 a.m. And I was nervous, honestly and truthfully. At the 7 a.m. time on Saturday, sometimes my show would run a whole hour if they didn't have anything to fill it. So we were playing real loosey-goosey, you know what I mean, in that 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. hour. But when they moved me to 8, that meant I was going to, you got to hit the clock, you got to hit this, you got to hit that. And I thought sure I was going to lose, my core audience. And instead, the audience grew because there were more people up and watching. So
sure.
That has been kind of a great thing.
So the local look, is that correct?
The local take.
The local take. And is it still airing 8 to 9 a.m. on Saturdays?
It's 8 to 8:30.
8 to 8:30. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I think it's you have an online component to that too. Is it on the...
We do. So that to me is one of the more amazing things. I mean, it's a 30-minute public affairs show on, a jazz station, and we can see the data analytics. So after every show, there's a post on the station's website. And we can go in and see the data analytics. And almost every week, believe it or not, this 30-minute public affairs show is in the top 10 draws to the station. Some weeks this week it's 2 of the shows are in the top draw. But, there have been occasions where it's been 3 shows that are in the top draw. And then, occasionally there are organizations and entities that will sponsor the local take. So the public library has sponsored the local take. And then one time I had an insurance agent sponsor the local take. And he did a show on long-term insurance. And believe it or not, it stayed up in the top draw.
Long-term care insurance?
Long-term care insurance.
People don't understand that. Yeah, that's great. It's a great topic.
It was crazy to me that stayed up there so long. So, but yeah, it's the the social media we post on, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, we get quite a bit of engagement there, but it's just still amazing to me that we're always there in the top 10.
So if you're in the top 10 so much just for 1.5 hour a week, how come no one has said, why don't we do this every day?
They have talked about doing a late night repeat of the show.
Sure. Yep.
And they've even talked about, sometimes we talk about politics on my show. Not a lot, because we want to kind of stay in the public affairs realm. And sometimes I do get my hand, kind of tapped, like that was a little bit political for the local take, Kiplyn. Maybe we need to do a political show. So that's kind of come up. But yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, because I know like Rose Scott's show on WABE, it airs, 1 to 2 during the week, but then she re-airs it at, I think, 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. Yeah, yeah. And then, and as do you, she's got the online option. So if you've missed the show, you can just go click and listen to it online, which I think is so important now, so people can share it.
It is. And also people can listen to it again. Like you may have heard something and you were like, oh, I wanted to tell somebody, what they said. This way you can go back, you can hit play and you can send it and say, hey, go to section 2 minutes, 39. That's when she talks about whatever, what have you. So I think it's great.
Well, Scott Slade has a show on WSB that he's started back up on Sunday mornings, and it's a great hour-long show. And, because SB is usually kind of a short snippet kind of stories during the week. But on that Sunday show, he goes more in depth. And it's great because you can get into a topic a bit more. But I don't always wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. I'm usually 8:15, 8:30, depending on how late I've been up the night before. So sometimes I miss something and have to wait a week or so until he gets the podcast posted to the website, and then I go back and listen to it and share it and all that. So let's see. Just so everybody knows, so we should say this: the station frequency for CLK.
It's WCLK, and it's 91.9 FM.
Great, and on the internet, what's the website?
WCLK.com. You can listen to it anytime.
And see, Twitter. You got a Twitter feed?
It's at WCLK 91.9.
Okay, and what do you have? Are you on Twitter too?
I'm on Twitter at Kiplyn, so Kiplyn.
And you're the only Kiplyn on Twitter. There you go.
I'm lucky. I started Twitter soon enough that I've got Kiplyn. So,
is there a Kiplyn-47 or something like that?
There are other people named Kiplyn, so I'm not the only Kiplyn. Okay. And I'm always surprised because I would have thought I was the oldest, but I'm not even the oldest Kiplyn. There are several ladies that are a little bit older than me. There's some men named Kiplyn. I've met a lot of Kiplyns, just not another Kiplyn Primus. That's
there you go. All right, so focus on public affairs. Are there some topics that you kind of have in the back of your head that you're thinking, I want to cover this in the next month or 2 or 6 that are kind of batting around in your head? There's things we need to touch on.
Well, there are a couple. I've reached out to some of the young people. We finally have some students back on campus. So the freshman class and the senior class. And we've done some COVID-19 stories, and we've talked to people from 2020, missed graduations and that kind of thing. But I would really like to have a roundtable with some of the young people, to talk about what this has been like, because it really is traumatic to have been locked down, for a year. And I remember, I think it was last summer when they were showing the pictures of the young people on beaches in Florida, and, everyone was fussing. But if I were 20, I'm pretty sure I would have been one of the people taking the risk. I'm just being serious because, it's COVID. Yeah, whatever,
You're indestructible when you're 20, right?
You felt like you were invincible. I remember one of my first jobs, the lady asked me, about benefits. And I was like, oh, I don't care about benefits.
I don't need health care. What do I need health care for?
but that's how young you are, in 2025. So I could understand it. I mean, I definitely could understand it.
Yeah.
And to hear their side of this story, to hear what it really has been like. And, I've got friends with, kids that are 18 in their early 20s that they know sneak out, to try to be with their friends.
Right.
And, just what has that been like for them? So that's one story I definitely would like to do. I'm doing stories about women in March for Women's History Month. And I'm shocked that this is the first time I've ever did that, where I'm doing all of the shows will be about women. And that's one of the first times we've done that. So one of the other things, we do some travel with our shows. So the Weeping Time is one of the shows that we did in 2016 about the largest sale of enslaved humans recorded in North America, and it happened in Savannah. So for the last 2 years, we've taken a bus trip there, and it's the first weekend in March. So last year, we were kind of on pins and needles because we were in Savannah right as the pandemic was breaking. But we were supposed to go to Nashville to the opening of the National African American Museum of Music. This year we were planning a trip to Tulsa for the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa riots. So, that part of our show I have really missed, and hope that we can get back to doing those things. The trip to Nashville had been planned for September 2020. We were going to be immersed in the history of Nashville from Fisk University. C.T. Vivian was at the Nashville Baptist Seminary, and he's the one that trained, John Lewis and Diane Nash and all those folks. So it was going to be just this wonderful trip for us to get immersed in, that real history up there.
Right.
And, fingers crossed, if we don't do it this year, we'll definitely do it next year. So,
yeah. So as a, HBCU, do you want all your stories or most of your stories to be kind of Black focused, or do you want to be more diverse? What's your feel on that for the station?
Well, a lot of our stories are specific to our community and the things that are going on in the African American community. But of course, we are not a monolith. We've had shows where we've had imam from a mosque, and pastor talked about what was going on over in English Avenue neighborhood, about the changes that are coming and how that community, those two communities had come together to provide security for the small businesses and things over there.
Right.
We've talked with Samaya Khalifa, who is the founder of the Muslim Speakers Bureau, Islamic Speakers Bureau, because a lot of the things that are happening in their community kind of boil over into, our community. We were front and center about the House bill that prevented Dreamers from going to state schools, and we covered Freedom University when it, first started. So I try to make sure that our community also understands, that we're not in this alone. We're not in America alone, that there are other people who have some of the same challenges that we have. One of the stories that we did this summer was we interviewed white moms who are raising children to thrive in multiracial environments. And if we could get more moms, that wanted to do that, we might move past kind of the morass that we continue to find ourselves in.
Okay, well, that's good. That kind of gives our listeners here a kind of a really good feel for the kind of story. And of course, I always tell people, before you pick up the phone or send an email to Kiplyn, go to the website and listen to a couple of shows and kind of get a feel for what she's been covering, and that way people are more on target if they're pitching you stories, and they're not wasting their time and yours pitching you things that are not on target for you.
And we love the pitches that come in. We have an engagement line. It's 404-880-6211. And we give it out every week. And we take stories from there. We even take some people, my niece, one of the stories we did on COVID was a woman's niece was home from college in California, and she started a nonprofit to give seniors rides to the polls. And I was just like, a lot of kids are in Florida. A lot of kids are in the basement playing computer games. And this young woman decided to start a nonprofit. I mean, she even got her 501(c)(3), partnered with several churches, and was taking seniors to the polls.
Cool. All right, so here's the lightning round now. So we don't have to go in depth with these, but what's something kind of fun and cool about Kiplyn that people might not know? It could be a hobby or things you collect or something like that.
You know what? I'm a reader, and I'm a reader, and I read everything. I read the newspaper. When I wake up, I start with the New York Times and the Washington Post. Middle of the day, around lunchtime, I get the Chicago Tribune. I read the Dallas Morning News. And towards the end of the day, I hit the Los Angeles Times, the Oregon newspaper. So I read all the time. I read fiction. But as I've gotten older, I read more nonfiction. Mm-hmm. I worked at a bookstore in college because I got to read book. I could take out any book for free. When I was in high school, can you believe my parents punished me by taking away books? Of course, I was only reading Harlequin romances, but I was like,
I was that kid too. All right, so what's the last book that you've read?
King Kong, Deacon Jones by McBride. I've got the title all screwy, but
right. What's your favorite local restaurant?
I'm in love with Homegrown on Memorial Drive. Okay. I like breakfast in general, but I like everything on their menu, and I go there too much.
All right, so favorite guilty pleasure?
Say yes to the dress.
Right? So favorite local getaway? Where do you like to go to relax and get away from it all a little bit?
Actually, I like going up to the Atlanta History Center. I work for StoryCorps, and StoryCorps has a recording booth there. So it's just one of my favorite work campuses. But anytime if I'm out and about and I've got, time to spare and it's on the way, it's just a beautiful campus. There are animals, and I've been all over it, but still sometimes I'll go in a corner somewhere and I go, I never knew this statue was here. So that is just one of my favorite, you can dream, you can think. It's just a beautiful campus.
All right. And last question, what's your favorite non-work hobby?
I like hot yoga. That is the thing that I have missed the most in this pandemic. I've been doing some virtual classes at home, but I am a hot yoga. I mean, one of my girlfriends said it was my religion. It is. It is one of the things that keeps me balanced and keeps me sane. And it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most once we can really get out and about.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. This has been great. I feel like we could talk for another half hour, but
this is fun.
I know. So is there anything else about the station or the show that you wanted to mention that I didn't ask about?
I don't think so. I think it's good. We did a marketing campaign for the 10th anniversary. We got new theme music for the first time. That was custom for us. We got new logo. So, it's like 10 years, you should take this seriously. So.
That's great. Well, we've been talking with Kiplyn Primus with WCLK. Let me try that again. WCLK Radio. Yeah. Thank you. Mitch, get it right. Thanks for being with us, and join us next week and mostly every Sunday for our 4 Questions Journalist Spotlight.
Thanks, Mitch, and thanks for all that you do to help the journalist community here in Atlanta. Thanks.
My pleasure.